Welcome back to That Football Stats podcast. I am your host, Joe, founder and developer at oddalerts.com. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at some of the winners and losers from around Europe. I've been taking notes as I've been watching the football this weekend, and there's only one place we can start. And it's Goodison Park. You know, no surprise there. 3 minutes in, the Everton fans were as loud as ever. You know, they got the pink banners holding them up, and then they were silenced. Everybody was silenced. The commentary was silenced for a second, and I think that's a sign of a great goal if you can give Gary Neville an orgasm. But seriously, you know, if you watch the commentary back on Sky, it's like they didn't know what to do, and then you just hear a wah! And I think that was probably replicated around the stadium and around the living rooms of people watching this game. That is a phenomenal overhead kick, and I think what makes it so good is that the ball in was kind of wicked from Dalot. It was quite high, it was travelling away from him, and he gets up and the connection is amazing. There's obviously a debate about, is it the best overhead kick ever? I think Bale's in the Champions League final is still sitting right at the top. Trevor Sinclair has an amazing one from the edge of the box as well, similar to Bale, actually. Premier League-wise, you've got Carroll, you've got Emery against Watford, which acrobatically is up there with Garnacho's, of course. You've got Rooney's, but it hit his shin, didn't it? Rooney's, it hit his shin, but the occasion, you know, the derby and all that, and the celebration. I think Garnacho had a chance there to, you know, that's going to be replayed and replayed so much. His celebration was a bit flat, I thought. I don't think he could believe that he'd done it. Whereas the Rooney one, you remember the celebration, you remember the moment, and maybe we will with the Garnacho one, but his celebration was just a bit, you know, come on, give it something. So for me, let me know in the comments, Gareth Bale for me is still number one for the occasion. To do that in a Champions League final, and the technique and how acrobatic it was, it's just sensational. But that is not taking away anything from Garnacho, who will definitely win goal of the season for that this season. I mean, unless there's some sort of scorpion kick or amazing team goal, Arsenal versus Norwich-esque, then I think it's a shoo-in. But let me know in the comments before we move on to the next winner of the weekend, which actually comes from the same game, an 18-year-old making his Premier League debut. Kobbie Mainoo, 18 years old, straight into the heart of that midfield. And what a performance. What a performance. From the first minute, he wants the ball, he's confident, he's assured. Looks like he's been playing, not just in the Man United midfield, but in the Premier League for the past 2-3 years. And you can see why Ten Hag was so disappointed in pre-season when he got that injury. What I liked about him yesterday is that he plays the game at his own pace. He's somebody that can dictate the tempo for Man United, and they have lacked that type of player, I believe, since Scholes and Carrick. I'm trying to think of somebody that's been in there since. Pogba. Yes, Pogba, but I mean, Pogba's struggled with consistency, certainly at Man United anyway. He had flashes of you know, Pogba, and then, you know, just faded and faded in and out of form. Yeah, this guy looks special, Mainoo, and 18 years old, he's got to be protected, but it's hard to drop him now going into this Christmas period. He's exactly what they need. The problems for Man United yesterday, especially in the first half, came when Onana would just hoof it. And, you know, you've got Rashford, Martial and Garnacho up top. It's not exactly a striking, physical front three. So Branthwaite and Tarkowski, they were just sweeping up. And the pressure, it would just come straight back at Man United. But when they got Mainoo on the ball, they were much better. And I think Man United fans are quite right to be very excited about him. So he is my second winner of the weekend. Before we go to France to see another winner and a team that is still unbeaten, we're going to stick to the Premier League because I also watched the Spurs-Villa game, and going straight into my winners of the weekend is Unai Emery. He might even be at the top. I mean, Garnacho, yes, amazing, but Unai Emery at half-time, he changed that game. He won that game for Aston Villa, bringing Tielemans on. Tielemans' second-half performance was near perfect. Didn't lose the ball, controlled the tempo of the game, relieved pressure on the Villa midfield, and Bentancur going off in that first half was very unfortunate for Spurs, because he was probably the best player on the pitch. He was getting across the midfield, linking things up. There was some really nice short passages in midfield for Tottenham in that first 15-20 minutes. But in that second half, Villa came out a different team, and it's so crucial getting that goal before half-time, isn't it? Just mentally for those Villa players, getting it on the brink of half-time and then coming out and breaking on Spurs many times. Luiz as well in the midfield. Villa's midfield as a whole is a winner for this week. Those 4 players that they had in midfield, McGinn came alive once Tielemans came on. He had a bit more space to move around. Kamara and Luiz both sitting, but both very mobile. Luiz he's a special player. The whole midfield quartet, silky is the way, smooth, that's the way I would describe that midfield. They're a joy to watch, and they've got someone like Jacob Ramsey as well, coming back from injury, who's going to be so eager to get back in there. I do think in terms of the midfield, they've got one of the most functional midfields in the Premier League on their day, Aston Villa. And Unai Emery's doing an amazing job, and those changes at half-time, they won them the game. And they just, Spurs in the second half were kind of a shadow of the team that they were in the first half. I've seen Spurs fans saying that the performance from Lo Celso and Hill and the midfield was fantastic. I don't believe it was. I really don't believe it was. Lo Celso, he did okay. There's some nice passes in there. But once Bentancur went off, it wasn't as free-flowing. They were trying to get balls into the box, trying to get it wide to Hill. I think when Sarr or Basuma is back, you'll see Lo Celso pushed up a little bit, and Brian Hill will be back out of the team. I think Brian Hill just sort of runs out of energy. He looked like a bright spark in the first 15-20 minutes, but then, the energy just drains out of him, and he becomes less and less effective as the game goes on. Kulusevski, again, did okay, but Bentancur going off and Højbjerg coming on, it's chalk and cheese, the difference between. And Bentancur in that first 15-20 minutes when he was on, he broke the lines of Villa's midfield, whether that was dribbling through the press or just finding another player with a quick 1-2. And that is what Ange needs. When it was Sarr and Basuma at the start of the season and James Maddison, it was so hard to contain. They would get in behind you with a couple of passes. But, when it's Højbjerg on the ball, when it's Lo Celso on the ball, it's just not as quick. It's just not as penetrative, with the passes. Højbjerg takes a few seconds. He's touching the ball. He's coming back. He's coming forward. 3 defeats in a row now. I'm not going to put them on my losers list this week. It's unfortunate for Spurs. I mean, they've got injuries, and Ben Davies, he's a left-back by trade, playing as a centre-back. Emerson Royal, I thought, did okay in terms of just, recycling the possession. But again, he's not somebody that you would look at and say, wow, he's a 8 out of 10 defender. Let's get him in there and play him at centre-back. But there's obviously a trust issue, especially after the last game, with Ange Postecoglou and Eric Dyer. So to cut that one short, it's a great win for Aston Villa, a deserved win. And Unai Emery goes in my winners of the weekend for those half-time changes. And Youri Tielemans and the whole Aston Villa midfield were sensational in the second half. They really were. My next winner of the weekend comes from France. It is Nice manager Francesco Farioli, 34 years old. They are still unbeaten. They've kept 8 clean sheets in a row. They're second only behind PSG, marginally behind PSG, still unbeaten. 1 point behind the powerhouse that is PSG. What an achievement thus far. Can they keep it up? They've conceded 4 goals all season. Can they maintain this? I would say yes, if they keep everybody in that defence fit. Performances like this are always built on great defences. If you look at Leicester, the defence was great. Every defender that was playing was having an 8 out of 10 every game, and they had the season of their life, right? And then, of course, if you've got people at the top end of the pitch that can score, especially if you're not creating a lot of chances, if you're winning 1-0 here and there, I think you've got the foundations to build something pretty special, because titles are won on great defences, as Alex Ferguson, of course, once said. Can they win Ligue 1? I don't think so, because PSG do look to be getting into some kind of groove now after a bit of a shaky start when they were without Mbappe and still trying to gel some of those players together. So Francesco Farioli, 34 years old, sensational job. He is our next winner of the weekend. The next winner from the weekend is David Moyes, because I came across a stat. In the Premier League era, David Moyes has the highest win rate, the highest win percentage of any West Ham manager at 37%. And West Ham have had a lot of managers in the Premier League, of course. and I think he deserves credit. I like to see him doing well after his Man United stint, which I think would have been an impossible task for many managers. And as we saw with Man United after David Moyes, it wasn't an easy task even for the best managers in the world. So David Moyes, the most successful Premier League manager, and obviously he's brought silverware, and I have always liked him. Yeah, he's a hard-working manager, and I think someone like him, it's easy to just put him down because he's not young, he's not somebody that discusses tactics or talks about football innovation in press conferences and whatnot. He just gets on with the job, but his teams are always playing with a lot of passion, a lot of energy, a lot of drive. You know, they play quite quick football, West Ham. They like to get it forward, and I don't hear too many West Ham fans complaining about the football, you know, similar to how they did when they had Allardyce, for example. So from one British manager to another, and the final winner of this week, I think we've got a lot of winners now already, is, well, it's not a manager, it's actually Lascelles, but you can see where the link comes to Eddie Howe, because Newcastle in general, but Lascelles as the centre-back, coming in, you know, Botman's been injured, Dan Burn's been injured, there's been disruption in every position for Newcastle. Tonali out, Bruno suspended last week, came back this week. Isak and Wilson both out for the previous game. Isak coming back in this week. And wherever they've had these shortcomings, apart from the Bournemouth game, it just didn't work. They fell flat. I think they had too many injuries, but they were back to their best at St James's Park against Chelsea, and Lascelles getting the goal. I think it caps off what's been a wonderful sort of month or so for him back in the team. And he fully deserves it, you know, because he was club captain before Eddie Howe came, and he's a true professional. The fans love him. He loves the club, and it's great to see him back in the team. He was there in the Championship, wasn't he, as well? I think he just deserves a shout-out getting the goal. But look, that Newcastle-Chelsea game, Anthony Gordon was running riot. He's going to have some season, going to be in the England squad if he continues. If he continues playing the way he is and he's not in the England squad, then Southgate really does have to answer some questions, especially if someone like Rashford is included. Come May time. Same with Sterling, potentially. Sterling wasn't great, did score a good free kick, but Chelsea fell flat. And I think goals change games, and they came at key times in this game. And Thiago Silva didn't cover himself in glory, and maybe it's a sign of, that he is on the decline. I mean, he's 39 years old, isn't he? I mean, fair play for even still being around this elite level at this age. Sorry, Thiago Silva, but you are the first loser of the week. I expect an angry video from your wife. If you don't get that reference, then, his wife recorded an angry video once after people started slating him for a previous mistake.
Respect Thiago Silva, because Thiago Silva arrived yesterday. Thiago Silva played for Brazilian seleção. Thiago Silva is very tired. Thiago Silva is 37 years. He plays then 20 years old.
Reece James also in my losers of the weekend list. Sorry, Reece, but you got a red card. You let yourself down. You let your team down. And Cole Palmer, not quite a loser, but again, just given the hype and the performance from both of those players, Reece James and Cole Palmer in the Man City game, they just fell flat. A flat performance all round from Chelsea, and I think they missed somebody that can just take a game by the scruff of the neck. And to be honest, they're missing chances still. There was a moment, I think it was at 1-0, maybe it was at 1-1, where Sterling plays through Jackson, and he's just thinking, just shoot, pull the trigger. And he just sort of goes away from the goal, but he was at an angle where you could just put your foot through it. And I think they're just missing that clinical striker, someone that when they get the ball, the only thing in their mind is, can I score, can I shoot? They need that person who, when they get a yard on the edge of the box, they're shooting. They're not even thinking twice about it. And I don't think Cole Palmer's that person. He's great. Gallagher, great ball striking, but, he shouldn't be relied on for that. And Kunku coming back is going to be key for them. Sterling likes to dribble rather than shoot, and his shooting isn't great regardless. He still scored a great free kick. But in play, he's not known for his finishing abilities. He seems to rush some chances for sure. Brozier, maybe he's getting back to full fitness, but I'd like to see him start a stretch of games in and around Christmas, because I think if he can get back to what he was doing at Southampton before his injury, he's a handful for any Premier League team. He put in some great performances for Southampton. I know it's Southampton, but it was still Premier League. And they just need that. They need someone to be a handful. They need someone to occupy some space. A few other mentions in both categories. You've got Leverkusen winning again 3-0. Bellingham got another goal. Another potential loser, Sheffield United. I mean, that's the sort of performance that will kill your confidence. Burnley as well, both at home, both losing to teams that, at the start of the season you would earmark those home games as you've got to pick up points here. For Burnley to be 1-0 up and throw it away. Sheffield United, wow. I mean, Bournemouth, I do like what I'm seeing. I really do like what I'm seeing from Bournemouth. They don't give you a moment's rest. They've got players at the top end of the pitch that are tireless. And they've got midfielders that can control, can pass. And I think they're going to be fine, Bournemouth. I really do. I think you can't overlook the start of the season that they had. The fixtures were very tough, as I've said many times on the podcast. But for Sheffield United, this is it. These next 6 to 8 weeks, there is a lot of games coming your way. If you don't find some form, you could find yourself 6 to 8 points adrift, maybe more. And that's not what you want, Sheffield United fans. And Heckingbottom, he's walking a tightrope at the minute. He did amazing to get them up, and he's not had much of a budget to spend to try and keep them up. But there's a serious lack of quality at the back. That it's just so clear. They're making errors that you can't make in the Premier League. You get away with them in the Championship because the strikers aren't as clinical, but you see, what's the keeper doing for the goal? There's a defensive error for another goal, and you cannot gift Premier League teams these opportunities, even if it's Bournemouth, who you might expect to be in the bottom half of the Premier League this season. They've conceded 3 goals at home to Bournemouth. They conceded 8 at home to Newcastle, of course. And for Sheffield United, I know we should never say that a team is destined to go down, but with Luton picking up a victory as well, and you know what, let's throw Luton in there as one of the winners of the weekend. I did predict a win on the last podcast episode. I thought it'd be a narrow victory. I thought 1-0 because they are good defensively. And to be honest, it took a moment of magic, didn't it, from Crystal Palace? It was a great goal, top left corner. And that result for Luton will add a lot more pressure to Heckingbottom and to Vincent Kompany as well coming into Christmas, because Luton, unlike Sheffield United and unlike Burnley, they're showing that when you go there, when you go to Kenilworth, it is going to be a very tricky game. We're not going to let you rest. They got a point off Liverpool, made things difficult for them. Liverpool amassed, 3.2 XG in that game, but they got the point. And I think there's going to be a lot of games where Luton pick up these scruffy points, almost like Forest last year. Everybody said at this time last year, Forest are down, they're gone, signed too many players, this, that. And then they start picking up points. They start beating Liverpool at home, right? You just pick up these random points. And then all of a sudden, people fear going there. And I think that's what will happen with Luton. I still think it'll be tough for them, just because of the resources. January is going to be key, because in January, Burnley will need to bring in a striker. Burnley will absolutely need to. Sheffield United will need to bring in defensive recruits, because if they don't, I think they're both down. But as I said before, you've got to still be in the game. That's why these next 6 to 8 weeks are crucial for Burnley and Sheffield United. Who do you think is going to go down? Let me know in the comments if you're watching this one on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, feel free to leave a review if you like. I think it will help. The listening numbers on the podcast are not great, but I've not really marketed it at the same time. I sort of just put it out there, share a link on Discord. Maybe I can start marketing it more. But the videos go on YouTube as well, so I'm happy for them to live there and the podcast to live there at the same time. But if you're listening to the audio version, please try and leave a review, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, and the likes. And let me know who your winner of the weekend was. Was it Garnacho's special goal? Was it Unai Emery's tactical masterclass at half-time? Or was it Newcastle dismantling Chelsea? I think it's hard to look past Nice and what their manager is doing. 34 years old. What a bright future he has. 8 clean sheets in a row. That takes some doing in any division. So fair play to Nice. hopefully they can keep it up for the rest of the season. I'll certainly be keeping an eye on their progress. Monaco, incidentally, a fun team to watch in Ligue 1 this season. Mainoo, ex-Liverpool player, playing really well. And on that note, one final addition to the losers, the game of City-Liverpool. I think for what people expected, the hype, I don't think it lived up to it, but it's understandable, given the international break. McAllister for Liverpool said that when he came back, they had a meeting where they were discussing tactics and whatnot. And he said he couldn't keep his eyes open, and that was the day before the game. And Dele Alli, in an interview with Gary Neville, I think it was earlier this year, wasn't it? He talked about being addicted or certainly taking a lot of sleeping pills. And, he said that clubs hand them out to players, and you can see why. I mean, McAllister's falling asleep. He's got jet lag. You've got a game tomorrow. You've got to make sure his body is getting enough rest, right? I think it's crazy, some of the kickoff arrangements. Are they trying to help these clubs or not? It's a strange one. And then there's European football as well in the week, so we've got that to come. I'll make some content around that, maybe do some predictions as well, go through some of the data. But for now, that's been the episode. And if you liked it, leave a review, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next one.